Mental well-being is vital for any workforce to operate to its full potential. As Minister of State for Disabled People, I want to emphasise the importance of appropriate provision of mental health support in the workplace. For employers to be well and truly disability confident, conditions affecting mental health must be treated with equal gravity as physical disability. This webinar, Mental Health in the Workplace, will instruct and educate employers on the many, often very simple and affordable ways that they can develop a positive mental health culture. Disability confident means supporting and protecting employees who face mental health challenges whilst at work, helping them through periods of burnout, grief, or helping them manage ongoing conditions. After all, a happy workforce is a more productive workforce.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. It is 1 minute to 2, but for those who are here, please be aware that we're using Zoom and we've got closed captioning on it. We also have, you can push the CC button apparently on your Zoom toolbar and it will come up. We've also got a BSL interpreter who is joining us to help. We are recording this session and we'll be sending it out with a resources page afterwards. And please, if you've got any questions, can you put them in the chat and we'll try and address them then and there. We have got one person who was due to join us this afternoon, Martin from Thrive. I can talk a little bit about what his business model does, but we've got two fabulous ladies with us here today. We're going to be running the video that Tom Pursglove from DWP, the Minister for People of Disabilities or Disabled People. They do change the titles and I can't quite remember which way round it is. He's done a video recording for us. We're doing this webinar on behalf of Disability Confident so that we can help encourage the SMEs out there to look at things seriously, but look at the really good value options that are out there and understand a bit better what mental health, or as I like to call it, mental ill health, is all about and what can be done. So Azadeh, I don't know whether we're able to run the video first.
We can, but who's going to share the video?
Okay, no worries. We will leave that and send that out with our resources page. That gives us a little bit extra time, which is wonderful. So can I ask you ladies to introduce yourselves? If we start with Jackie.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jackie Wallace. I am the CEO of a company called Genius Within. We are a community interest company. And we specialise in supporting neurodivergent adults and the organisations that employ them. We work right through from those people who are not in work, and the reasons they're not in work might include that they're in prison, they may be long-term unemployed, right the way through to people who already have work and are seeking additional support to help them thrive in the workplace.
Wonderful, thank you. And Ali.
Hello, yeah, my name's Ali. I don't think I'm the CEO. I don't think they let me in charge of anything, but best that I'm not. I created a therapeutic model we call the Ollie model, and very, very simply, it's simple because I trained in all sorts of therapy, CBT, play therapy, you name it. I just love it, but it was all too highbrow for me. I have trouble reading and writing. And a lot of the people I was working with, it was too highbrow. And I believe no one needs fixing. We've got everything we need inside. So we created a model designed to work with children and adults and give them back control. So that's me.
Absolutely love that. Can I just ask up front one of the questions that I didn't give the interpreter that I'm just thinking, given what you both said? Is there a preponderance of more mental ill health with individuals who are is there a lot of people neurodiverse? Thanks, Ali. That are neurodiverse that have mental health conditions because of perhaps masking and things like that going on?
Just to let you know, JC, that your interpreter has messaged us in the chat.
Oh, lovely.
So I think he needs to have his camera enabled.
That's an Azadeh thing, I'm afraid. I can't.
Okay, Azadeh, are you there? Could you?
Yes, I'm trying to sort it out. He had a panelist link which he should have joined as a panelist, but I'm sorting it out. Don't worry.
Okay, all right, no problem.
Thank you so much for pointing that out.
This is your specialist area, and you're probably better to place it, because all that I would say from our perspective is anything that makes you different or makes you feel you don't fit in or makes you feel you're struggling in some way will cause, I don't like mental health or mental illness. We call it emotional well-being issues. So Jackie,
Okay.
you're better placed.
Jackie, please.
Hello, Mark. You're our interpreter.
Yeah.
Hello,
Hi,
good
Mark.
day. Are you going to pin the interpreter so that those viewing this can see me?
I have pinned the interpreter now.
Right, okay, on my screen I'm just small, so you've all got me big on your screen, have you?
Yes.
Otherwise it won't work.
Yes.
Fine, no problem, then we can commence the meeting.
That's
Wonderful.
Lovely.
Thank you. Sorry, Jackie, we were asking about whether there's a significant number of people who are neurodivergent that have mental health conditions, or as Ali just said, emotional challenges.
So what we know is that poor mental health is much more likely to affect you if you're neurodivergent. And that is for a number of different reasons. Very often in the workplace, people can't be authentic, they can't be themselves, and they have to do masking. So they have to change their behaviour to fit in. I don't like the word normal, but to appear normal. So when you're constantly having to be something or present a version of yourself that isn't natural, that takes up a lot of energy. And what can happen over time is that people can feel worn out, emotionally and cognitively worn out by that. And that can contribute to mental health issues, to burnout, feelings of anxiety. There are statistics. So Autistica have said that 70% of autistic children will suffer with poor mental health at some point. And 80% of autistic adults will have had at least one mental health condition in their lifetime. So we are talking about significant numbers of individuals who are struggling with poor mental health. And I think when we talk about inclusion in the workplace and we talk about its importance, quite often people focus on the practical elements of having accessible keyboards or using technology.
Yeah.
Actually, inclusion is about people being able to be themselves at work and the impact that that has on their well-being and their feeling of it being included, of being welcomed at work, can lessen that mental health burden that seems to unfortunately hit those of us who are neurodivergent more than our neurotypical colleagues.
Thank you, Jackie. Ali, with young people and with children, do they have just off days? I mean, I always describe having a blue day or a stay in bed day. I wouldn't say I have, depression or anything. So how do you describe it?
I don't think there's one word. I have a real issue with labels. There's a place. Certainly, if you're on the spectrum, labels are important. Diagnosis is important for support. But we were talking to the guys that I train, and the question came up: do we need to react differently to children on the spectrum? Do we need to be experts? And I know that this will probably be contentious with Jackie, but my answer is no, because what we need to do is be an expert in stepping into that child's word and seeing how they do their problem, because only then can we help them regardless of their label. So one child might say being blue, catastrophic, whereas another child will use the word depressed, whether or not they know what it means. So I think we have all these emotions inside us for a reason. And it's important that we can have down days. Yeah. It's important that things make us sad. It's important that we have the ability to feel those things. But I think the really important thing is teaching people as young as possible how to manage them, and that you're in control of them, they're not in control of you. And we do that successfully with every child.
You have actually something called the label bin, don't you?
I do.
And what's that?
I mainly use it for adults because although we're known as Ollie and his superpowers to work with children and teenagers and families, we do an awful lot of corporate work because, you know, we're not just our job titles, we're parents, we're wives, when I started to go in and do emotional wellbeing training and support, it was really apparent that we sort of had the MD in there and everybody was, and they'd all be their job titles, and it would take half a day for them to stop being their job titles and actually gain something from the training. So I have a bin outside the room and it says, leave your title and your label here, you can have it back later if you need it.
Wonderful. And that just breaks down some of the barriers.
It does, and it allows them to actually get something from the day, because I think as previously been said, we are what we need to be at work. We wear masks.
Yeah.
So when I go and do these talks, what I'm doing tomorrow, I want everyone in that room to go away with something. And if they feel that they can't engage because it's inappropriate because they're the MD or they're supposed to have their act together, what a waste of time. We're supposed to be able to talk about this. It's a block.
Well, isn't it interesting? And Jackie, I wanted to ask you is, what is the importance about having an open conversation? Not necessarily honest, let's not go too far, but an open conversation with our colleagues and feel safe about it. How important is that?
Well, I think the end bit that you just said there, feeling safe about it, psychological safety at work is a biggie. So if we are going to ask people to disclose, to say, ask what they need, to advocate for themselves, if we are going to have conversations when we invite them to share their mental health wellness or not, we're going to need to provide them with some psychological safety. And if we can't do that, then just as Ali said, if you can't go into a room and be able to engage properly, those conversations that when we ask people to share without psychological safety are going to be meaningless, because people aren't going to be able to share properly and authentically. So
isn't that what we're talking about here? If we get to people early enough and make it not a taboo subject.
Exactly. And that,
mental health. To that.
If we can have these conversations, even today, having this conversation with us sitting here and the 45 people that are watching us, we're having a conversation that it's okay and natural for people to be able to talk about having different types of mental health. You can have good days and bad days. We've already mentioned the word depression. Even having this conversation elevates and normalizes a conversation that is recognized to be very difficult for some people to have. And if you've already masking and you're already feeling that you're not, or you can't be your authentic self at work, then adding on being able to share your mental health status is a big ask. It's a big ask for some people. And really what we advocate is, and we do at Genius Within, in our organisation, is we need role models. We need people to be at senior positions in the organisation who are willing to share and open this and talk about and provide resources for people when we have mental health challenges, because it is likely to affect a lot of people. And if it doesn't affect you, it may very well affect somebody in your family. And so we, and exactly as Ali said, we don't live in a little bubble where we're just who we are at work. Of course, we wear all the different hats and we have different responsibilities and relationships in our life. And it's really important that we can be who we really are at work in order to do our job without losing sight of who we really are in the world as well.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I mean, how do you start that conversation? Ali, how do you start that conversation? Do you ask how somebody's feeling? Do you say, I've noticed that you're not as perky today? I mean, where do you start?
I just have this mantra, it's okay to not be okay all the time, because if you are,
I love that.
You're a robot, right? And nobody's okay all the time. I'm not. So, I mean, we're therapists. And so I guess people come and see me because there's a problem. So I don't have too much of an issue with, are you okay? Obviously they're not, they've come to see me. But we do lots of training, as you know, we do lots of work with very small children all the way through. And we don't start with that, because the moment we do, you'll see some of the children recoil, and it's very much, okay, so I'm here to talk to you about all of your feelings and how important all of them are, and that it's really, really important that they all have a voice and that you recognise that they all need to speak up sometimes. And when they do, it's more than okay to talk back to them and to help them and to ask other people if you don't know how to help them. We've got to normalise it. And I think, so Jackie's very much working with the adults. If I'm wrong, Jackie, correct me.
Oh, that's right.
My whole thing is, I don't ever want to be on a webinar like this again in a few years' time.
That'd be fab.
Because, well, we're doing it. I want to get to the kids. I've got 6-year-olds, diverse, neurodiverse, who understand that anxiety is just their bodyguard and that they can manage it and control it. They can talk to it, and they're not having problems with transition. They're not going to have problems when they become teenagers. We'll still have some fall through than that, but I'm showing nowhere near as many. And the same in the workplace, but it's by creating a method and a way of making it okay and normal. Your emotions, your family. You take care of your kids. Why don't you take care of your emotions? It's not a big deal. We've all got them.
It's a really good point. Just normalizing it and making it business as usual within an organization. What could small companies do to encourage this? Because often they don't have the budget for Rock Health. They don't have the budget for an employees assistance program, for example. So where are they going to go? What are they going to do to get help? Can I ask Jackie?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, obviously we can refer them directly through to Genius Within.
So in terms of mental health, there's loads of support out there online, and there may be specific things in your local region through your local kind of work hubs and your local councils. In terms of national sort of tried and tested resources, obviously there's things like Mind that you can access online. I think, to be honest with you, if you're an SME, talking that is free, and we can have a conversation. And I think, exactly as Ali said, it's okay to not be okay. Perhaps you could do something in your policy where it's not just words. Perhaps you could look at your policy where you could introduce some duvet days. So if someone's not feeling up to it, they could maybe start a couple of hours later, or maybe they could have, but they don't need to give notice for a limited number of days or hours that is at their, just, at their fingertips, that they could just say, I can't do this today. I'm going to need to work a shorter day or have different hours today. And I think if you're a small company, if you can offer some level of flexibility in terms of its out-of-pocket costs is free. I understand there's impact to a business, but there are things that you can do that would show and illustrate to your employees that you're taking this seriously. So let's have a conversation, let's work out what would work for us as a business, and then let's put some things in place where you could give them a resource list of local phone numbers to ring if they're having a bad time, or you could offer these kind of opportunities for different types of annual leave. You could work with your organisation to have a kind of a toolkit for when things perhaps become stressful at work. So we're working with Mental Health England to do mental health first aid training, and one of the things that they talk about there is having a kind of go-to list of things that you do when everything becomes a bit overwhelming at work. And they include things like going outside for a 15-minute walk, and getting some fresh air. Talking about your feelings are really important. These things aren't high cost items, and some of them will be more appropriate to other workplaces, so clearly we need to talk about what would work within the confines of that organisation. But there are things that you could do that are low cost or free, that provide resources and support for when people are not feeling at their best from a mental health perspective.
I love that. What do you do, Ali, in terms of young people
Again, we don't just work with young people, we do an awful lot of corporate stuff.
Mm.
I think all of that, it's brilliant, and Jackie's spot on. There is support out there, and it is free. I think we need to look at how accessible that is. So yes, we're not talking about picking a phone up to Mind, who are an amazing group. It's about actually feeling you can. The hardest thing is making that first, I'm not okay. So we need to really look at how accessible that is. We see a lot of issues in organisations, and we work with a lot of schools, as you know, where the staff don't feel they can talk to the management because all the goodwill in the world, they're worried it will go on their record and it will be held against them. So it needs to be something that's separate and very, very safe space to do. One of the things we do is we do work with a lot of small businesses because they got lost, you know, the big guys got money and they're ticking the box, they're doing all the training. And so we literally say, right, we're going to be here. This is what we do. And what we're going to do is we're going to spend the day for any of your team, your staff that want to listen, to come along, and we're going to give them ideas and an understanding of why they feel the way they do and what they can do about it. So we're more prevent. But what we'll do is then have 6, 7, 8 small businesses all turn up. There's no cost then. But what it does is it gets to those guys that really, really need us, that maybe don't have the in-house insurance from a big company, or a big company that can bring people in regularly and do it. So we're more prevent, because I really do believe that, I mean, you think about it, a few years ago, if you had a bad back, you had to go to the GP for some decent painkillers, right? Well, we're trusted to go to the chemist on our own now. Whoopee. For me, that's what's going to happen with emotional well-being. And that's what we're striving to do with children, teens and adults. Get out of our ivory towers, give them the tools. They can take care of it themselves 9 times out of 10, not every time. And when they really can't, as Jackie said, there is support out there, and it is free and it's accessible, but it's that first step.
I totally agree.
Sorry, Jackie.
Sorry, I was going to say, I think that asking for help, the critical point of asking for help when you need that help most, is exactly the moment that you can't ask for it. The irony is and if we layer on neurodivergence within that, and people having difficulties with feeling that they can communicate easily in whatever way, then you can get yourself in a situation where people really desperately do need help, but don't know how to ask for it. They don't even know how to form the words, or what question they should ask, or if they're allowed to ask, or who they should ask. And these are all the things that, you know, we do need to sort of tease out and discuss, because I was talking to a group of line managers in an organisation the other day, and we were trying to find a way that everyone could communicate if they were having a bad day without admitting it. Do you know? Need help. So we were looking at what everyone's got, which is a smartphone, and they were picking an icon and choosing an icon, and they could send an icon to their line manager, and that if a line manager saw that icon, they would understand that they were having a bad day, because some of the people couldn't write down, they just couldn't communicate, I am having a bad day. And so writing, just being able to pick a symbol which you pre-agreed, this is a rule that we've agreed, that if I send you a blue flower, it means that I'm gonna probably be in late because I'm having a bad day, and you know, I need a bit of flexibility on that day, or whatever it is.
That's a really practical solution, though, isn't it? That doesn't cost anything. That's just a communication thing to prepare somebody.
Yeah. You know what the problem is, and I really wish it wasn't. I think that's a lovely solution, actually, in nicking that. The problem is that, and sorry to any organisations listening in that want to shout at me right now, feel free, because we need to be honest about this. The problem is the organisations that are in a position to have people like me or Jackie come in and do training and support their staff, and will encourage you to send an icon because you're not having a good day and you might be in late, or you need a few hours off, right? People do not trust that is not going to affect promotion, who gets made redundant next. They don't trust. And so in order to sort this out, we need companies not just to be ticking a damn box of, yes, we've got mental health provision in here, and yes, we're excellent employers. We need them to give their employees that safe space. And we need them to really understand, not just tick boxes, because until that changes, doesn't matter what good ideas we come up with. I don't know many people, and we work with thousands, believe me, that feel comfortable saying, so third time this week you're in late because you're having a blue day.
Well, we have a message in the chat. Kim says we have 2 mental health first aiders and have wellness plans for everyone who might need it. So far, engagement is low, but I think it's because it takes time to build up trust in the process.
Yes.
Absolutely. That's exactly what these two lovely ladies are saying. And it is that trust issue. And it's the same when we're talking about making workplace adjustments for individuals who have a disability or long-term health condition. And mental health or emotional health, which I do love, Ali. Actually, I think we're going to have a lovely Borrow with Pride session here. We've got people saying that they're nicking that and people love things. It's keeping it really simple and plain and business as usual language to say, I mean, we've kind of moved into the territory now, if you think about, I use HRT patches. I am that old, but I can say, do you know what? I'm having a really hot flush. I'm not coming on camera. Is that okay? And I feel quite comfortable saying it. And I might not use a blue flower. I might actually use a finger symbol when I'm saying I'm not really feeling like playing today, just to make it completely obvious what's going on with me. But I have that conversation as a very general, by the way, I'm feeling like crap today. Please leave me alone because I'm likely to bite your head off. And people respect it. But we go back to the point though, and Jackie, I wanted to ask you, how are people going to record this? How are they going to store it? How are we going to avoid them being black ticked because they're thought as mentally feeble or whatever the old outdated mode of thought is?
So I think there's something about you having the agency to say to say what you just said and say, I don't want to, I'm having a bad day or whatever, and having the agency. And I think as we get senior in an organization, we can do that because we've got the power and the agency.
Interesting.
I can say, I'm not coming in today, I'm the boss. And who's gonna,
that's a good point.
Gonna,
okay.
right? So if you're not the boss and you're further down, this is I think what Ali's saying is it's really hard to feel that you have that same level of agency and power, because if someone is going to potentially suggest that you're not up to it. And that is a cultural thing and it is a safety thing. And you're not going to change that overnight. I think what we need business to understand is we need to bring a parity of mental health and physical health together.
Yeah.
Because our head is in our body.
Yeah.
So mental health is part of our physical health. And when we understand time off work or through physical ill health, bad back and whatever, it's just the bad back is the, I think, second.
It's 60% of all the adjustments we do. Yeah, musculoskeletal, not easy to say.
Thank you. And I think business needs to understand that mental health days off are also massively impacting businesses' productivity. And when we talk about how many days and what it costs us, there are phenomenal numbers. I can't recall the exact number, but it's in the billions that is lost through business, through people having poor mental health. And so what I would challenge the leaders in all size businesses is to take this seriously. It is not about someone not being up to it and they're a bit annoying because they're not in. If we don't take this seriously, the impact on a business is its productivity and its staff. And we know it's very expensive to recruit staff. We want to retain good staff. We need them to feel engaged. We need them to feel motivated. We need to believe them. And we always walk into a room and say, we will always give people the benefit of the doubt. And in the sector that we're in the neurodivergence area, there is a real difficulty in getting diagnosis, and there's waiting lists and lack of resources, and it's really difficult for people to get to be diagnosed. And a diagnosis can be very cathartic for some people. For some people, it's more than that. They need that piece of paper in order to be validated at work. So you might not get adjustments unless your policy might say you have to have a diagnosis. if you're black or brown, you're very much less likely to be believed if you just turn up and say, I think I've got ADHD, but you don't
Wow.
have a piece of paper. You're more likely to
Wow.
be into a performance issue over something that is about your cognitive
Seriously.
profile. Yeah.
So
We
this is
have to-
intersectional. This isn't anything
Oh,
to do
yeah,
with,
ab-
you know, white
absolutely.
middle-aged women. It's just across the board, but
It-
more likely to be.
If you are from a marginalised community,
Mm,
you're going to be working twice as hard to get the same level of opportunity. And if you add other things into it, so it increases that difficulty. So I think having a diagnosis is really important, and we know it doesn't. We know it's really difficult for some people to get it. So what we jump to is we say, okay, so let's just believe people, right? Let's just
mhm, yeah.
and you know, I love Ali's like drop the labels. Not everybody wants a label, so let's just kind of just look at the person, because we're all unique, and let's just say, what do you need? What do you need to work at your best? What are the things that you need to put in place that are going to help you thrive? And we use a lot of visualization in our work, and we have this lovely image of a hot air balloon, and in the basket there's obviously sandbags, aren't there, that
Mhm,
keep you
yeah.
on the ground.
Yep.
And we look at what your sandbags are. What are the things? What are the barriers? What's stopping you being able to
Oh, wow.
rise up
Wow.
and absolutely fly through the air and be your absolute best? And they might be free things and they might be low cost things, but it's really important that we identify what those are.
Sorry, I'm interrupting, Jackie, because I was reading a post on Facebook, actually, Ali, that you did about asking young people, children, I don't know what the terminology is, apologies, I have no reference to young people at all. Rugrats, we'll go with that. Young snotbags. What you posted something about what they believed was holding them back from their dreams, didn't you? And that was just the other day. And I
Yeah,
love that post.
and it's again, everything I'm about is I'm not interested in someone's behavior, because a behavior is a coping mechanism for any situation. I'm interested in the emotion driving the behavior. And if we spend time and effort just dealing with the behavior, it's only going to be partially effective. But if we spend time and effort dealing with the emotion driving that behavior, it's 100 times more effective.
Mm.
So we run all sorts of programs, and one of the programs we run is we call it Ollie Kids and Ollie Teens. And it's for what I call my cuspers, you know, the ones that don't need one-to-one, but they're going to slip through the gaps, and they're the ones that end up a nasty statistic. So we get a group of them together, and at the start of the program, they hate one another. They really hate me in their life. And my question is, what do you want to be when you grow up? Because I was told, because of my reading and writing, I wouldn't do anything. And now I have the best damn job in the world, and I write books. So really?
Wonderful.
Bring it on, teachers. Teachers today, lovely. Teachers back then, not lovely. And these kids will tell me all these things that are going to block them. And it's mum and dad. It's teachers. It's their environment, friends, family, gangs. It's politicians. So they've already made up their mind that they're not actually going to get anywhere unless they're born with a silver spoon, or they win the lottery and then become a footballer or a pop star. That's all external. And the end of the week, end of our program, I asked them again the same question, and they all just grin at me and say, the only thing that's going to stop me is me.
Wow.
And the difference is that we don't deal with the behaviors. I can't change where they live. I can't change what's going on with my dad. I can't change how good they are at maths or English. But what I can do from a very young age is give them the emotional resilience, big, long word, but rather than just say we need more resilience, we get them to experience it, for them to be the very best they can be. Because the only one blocking any of us realistically is us. And people say, oh, you know, you shouldn't do that. You know, children, you know, shouldn't, you know, letting them to aspire. Why? Because one of the biggest issues we have with mental health, the number of teenagers self-harming and suicide I've seen in 2 months.
Yeah.
And it's because they don't believe they can get anywhere, because it's been drummed into them, or because it's a belief they've had. And we're all about changing that. So Jackie, you're right, we're not changing it overnight, but if we keep firefighting, we're never going to change it. So we're all about train. We're all about giving the techniques we use as therapists to kids, to teens, to parents. So parents don't need to bring their kids to us. They can sort it out themselves. It's doable. And we do.
Isn't
have
it wonderful to
workplace.
think long term?
Ladies, before we go
we
on,
have
this is
a que-
sorry, this is the interpreter speaking. We're just going to need to take an interpreter break for a few moments. This would be good if there's people watching who are using the service as well. An eye break and also a mental capacity break for me.
Of course.
I'm just going to go off the screen for about 1 or 2 minutes, if that's
Wonderful.
okay, and
Of
then we'll
course it is,
resume.
Mark. Thank you.
We also have a question here. Mark says, if a disability confident employer is not
Excuse me,
adopting...
should we wait till the interpreter's back before we introduce more questions in case anyone's interested in those?
Yeah, that's fine. Yes, we can do that. What do you think, Tracy?
I'm just going to sing a song. And I'm going to thank the wonderful hosts. I'm actually sitting in the BDF offices in London. I used to work for Business Disability Forum about, oh gosh, it's probably 7 years ago. And it's so surreal walking into the office again and seeing the same people. Not the same desk, thank goodness, but it's a bit like time slip. It's quite worrying. So we shall wait for young Mark to come back.
You've
and
got
then
your
we will
awards, haven't you, tonight?
We've got, yeah, Business Disability Forum awards in Freshfields law firm, hence the slightly potted top. Normally it's a hoodie. So I've got proper trousers on today, not tracksuit bottoms. They do have an elasticated waist, though. I came prepared.
Ah, yeah, but are you here to heal or not to heal?
Oh, I've got heels. Heels. Oh, mate, heels. Yeah, I'm nearly 6 foot tall, so I always wear heels just to make sure I'm properly imposing when I come in. I look like a galleon in full sail. It's wonderful. Do you remember Hattie Jakes? I aspire to that kind of Hattie Jakes swag. The woman was awesome because she just walked in and it was like, I'm here. Yeah, that's what I'm going for tonight. And I think I'm going to succeed. Welcome back, Mark. As a day, could we have that question?
Yes. So Mark asked, if a disability confident employer is not adopting best practice and using their small organization, in your view, what is classed as a small, medium or large business, and what advice could you give?
Interesting question. The actual standard that an SME...
ONS, yeah.
Sorry?
It's the ONS, isn't it?
Yeah, they've actually changed the banding that an SME is up to. I believe it's 250 employers. So from 0 or 1 to 250 is an SME. I used to use it as a more general catch-all, I guess, for businesses until you get to huge global organizations. So anybody that's sort of a reasonably small organization will be supported in the UK through Disability Confident. If you're not in the Disability Confident program, do it. It's free and great resources. Program. Yeah, look at those nodding heads. It's really helpful. I mean, we're doing this with Disability Confident to give ideas, hints and tips and free resources to businesses for you to understand what is out there that you don't have to pay for. And one of the best resources that's still a little challenging, but it is a great resource, is Access to Work, which is through DWP. It takes some time. You need some patience. But I mean, I use them. I've got all of my kit, my software, my riser desk at home, and my lovely ergo chair. Thank you very much, DWP. And that's paid for by the government. So that's wonderful.
Yeah. So if I can just add on to Access to Work. So when we work with organisations, so we kind of, doesn't really matter because, you know, we work with any size of organisation, but we sort of have micro, which is, you know, just a few people, small up to 50. Medium up to 250, and then large 250 and above. Disability Confident as a program, I think, is a fantastic program, and the steps on there and the things that you can do and read about and the resources that are there, and it's a three-stage process, and you've got up to 3 years to do it. So I'm assuming they've thought that you're going to do one stage a year. But some people take a lot longer to do one stage. But it's really, really helpful. There's, I think, something like, can you remember the number of companies that are signed up?
22,500, give or take 1 or 2. Yeah.
And we're a Business Confident leader. So we can support organisations who want to go through that process if they need additional support. I think with Access to Work, if you're an SME, if you're a small business, you will get almost everything paid for. You don't get an assessment paid for, but you would get things like workplace coaching paid for, and hardware, software elements. As you go through and you get into larger businesses, a larger business won't qualify for some of the software. You'd have to pay for that themselves, but the coaching is covered by Access to Work, regardless of the size of business that you are. It's always covered.
And it's
So-
also covered in the interview process with mental health conditions.
Yeah.
So if you need a support worker or you need coaching to go through an interview process, you can actually encompass that, and they will pay for that as well.
So you just need to Google Access to Work and you will find a link. And unfortunately, and rather ironically, the Access to Work process is not very inclusive. There's lots of writing, which for I'm dyslexic and people like Ali and I, it's probably more challenging than for most. It's form filling and writing in. But if you can get someone to help, or you've got some support to do that, then it is worth doing. There are waiting lists. You get an assessment, an assessor. They can do it virtually now since lockdown. They don't need to come to your workplace, but it is getting quicker. I think I had someone through the other day in 6 weeks, which is the lowest it's been for quite a long time.
Wow. I've heard tell when I deal with companies of it sort of 7-8 months.
Yes, no, exactly. That's what it has been.
It can be a challenge.
It
I
can
mean,
really be
the
a
thing
challenge.
with the Access to Work, we do as a business at Microlink, we help people the same as you with the validations for the disability confident,
Yes.
but we also do Access to Work support. So for some companies where they've got support workers, we do the Access to Work every single month for that individual.
Yeah.
And it's quite onerous, let's be honest, but they are changing the process. They're actually going through a tender at the moment, and I think it's going to be fab when they've changed it. We look forward to that.
I hope so. We've been lobbying them for ages about all the changes that we want to have happen.
We love that. Ali, what experience of any of that? Sorry, Azadeh.
And there is another question, sorry.
Please, no.
Someone asks, how do we introduce or train to become wellness champions for small business?
Wow, who can answer that one, Ali?
Again, I'm afraid I know what I know. So Jackie's by far the expert on this panel. It really depends on your business. So I can talk about where we work predominantly, which is schools, foster and adoption. And they engage us to train their people either in situ or for their own personal needs or family and what have you. So again, Jackie, I'm going to have to hand over to your expertise on this one.
Well, I would, if you want mental health specifically, I would recommend the MHFA. I'm really bad with acronyms. Not very good with random letters. The Mental Health First Aid Programme. So I think from memory, I might be wrong here, it's about £160 a person. And if you have lots of you doing it, you can have a trainer just do your workplace. But there are open courses that you can just join. So if there's just one of you in the workplace, one of you join, and then obviously other workplaces sign up to that same one. I think it's a very good course. I think they've just revamped it, but it's about 16 hours of training, and it's about understanding the signs. So the things that we've talked about today: how to start a conversation, what to do, how to signpost, and also there's a lot of resources, because if you Google something about mental health, there's a lot of information, and not all of it will be high quality. So what they have done is sort all of that out for you and give you recognised links and resources that you can go to by area. So that's nothing to do with us. Well, I'm not anything to do with them, but I do think that it's a very good baseline grounding in some trying to do a bit like physical first aid. Mental health first aid just is about that initial triage, and it doesn't do anything more than that, but I think it's a really useful place to start.
Yeah,
thank you for that.
Depends what you want, and again, I can only speak from the areas that we work in, but the mental health first aid is very good for everything that Jackie's just said. It will start those conversations. But once you've started that conversation, you need to be able to do something with it. So if you've done your mental health first training and you have the rapport, you have that sense of self to make someone feel safe enough to open up to you, you need to know where to send them next or deal with it yourself. And I guess one of the things that we do is we train people in situ fully through to being an OLLI coach. We're therapists, we call ourselves coaches because who wants to be in therapy? It depends what your organization needs. So if you have the ability to do the mental health first aid, but then direct them on and make sure that they take up, that's fantastic. If you're an organization that's looking for something in place where you can look after you guys yourself. So if you're working with children, young adults, then there's organizations like us.
But you have to be DBS checked, presumably.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, it's actually quite scary. I know when we set up our training school for therapists, so sort of, do you know, what's the bare minimum? Surely everybody's insured. Surely everyone's DBS checked.
Yeah.
Surely they're all in supervision.
Yeah.
Surely lots of things. No. So
Really?
guys, do your checks, do your homework. Yeah, we've made the point. I'm serious. It was quite frightening.
Yeah,
because
I agree.
so many obscure governing bodies who's actually keeping an eye. So yeah, we make our guys jump through hoops of fire because we deal with the kids everyone's given up on. So we know we're going to get disclosures. We know we're going to get people self-harming. We know we're going to get people that are depressed and being in severe trauma. But no, it's quite scary actually. So do your homework.
I totally echo that, and I would say, you know, coaching as a profession has risen up, and people, there is no
one day and you're an expert. Yeah.
There is no accreditation. That's and people can put the badge on
that is actually really scary.
and say that it is. So we have exactly the same as Ali does. We put criteria in place to make sure that all our coaches are checked, are trained, and meet criteria. And then we have impact data that we collect on every single intervention that we do to ensure that the quality control is there for everybody that receives a service that's delivered by Genius Within.
Can I come back then? That's wonderful to hear, because that's actually quite scary. That's just made me go a bit like, oh fuck, that's really, oh sorry, I said the F-bomb. So sorry, Azadeh.
Only once though.
Only once though, yeah, fair enough, thank you. But going back to actually recording these conversations, are we using, I mean, as I mentioned, I'm at the Business Disability Forum, and thank you very much for hosting. They have a tailored adjustment plan that they use rather than a passport because of some of the connotations around simply the word passport. You know, if you come as I am, I'm an immigrant. Anyway, I've come from Australia, and actually I didn't have a British passport until I was nearly 20. So for me, passport's got a bit of a negative connotation. So the tailored adjustment plan that they have, which you can download for free, it's a free resource, we can put it in the resources page, actually talks about having that conversation and recording some of it. So not necessarily what the challenges are that individual might have, but what you've done differently to allow them to feel more resilience, to allow them to feel more emotional well-being. So whether or not it's what Jackie was saying about duvet days, which by the way, lots of big companies like Accenture and KPMG and the like allow you free duvet days. And you don't have to say what you're using them for. You just have to like wave your little duvet day card, and you don't have to turn up that day, which I quite like. So we need to record that somewhere, surely. But do we also record what the challenges are they're facing, Jackie, do you think?
Yes, I think it's really important that people have a space or a place where they can record when they're working at their best. It's like what? And it doesn't have to be framed in a negative way. So it might be that you say, when I'm working at my best, the room is quiet. It's at a temperature like this. So I like to be a bit warmer or a bit colder. I like to be near a window, or I like to be in a room, you know, that's darker or lighter. Or maybe you might not have an office job. You might be better. I work at my best when I'm doing the work outside or inside, if there's music on or it's quiet. All of these things will help somebody develop what they need at work to work at their best. So one of the things that we do is we will talk to somebody about a time when something went really well. So it might be a piece of work that you did that you're particularly proud of. If you're a transitioning adult coming into the workplace the first time, you might look back on an exam you did particularly well in, or a piece of coursework that you did well in. What happened for you? Why did those pieces all fall into place and it ended up being a really good experience? And then what were the things? And then to go through and understand environmentally what they were: light, sound, temperature, all of that.
Can I ask then, Jackie, and I'm interrupting, but I'm really curious, what do you do if you're an SME, you're in a small office, there may be 4 or 5 of you starting a business up, you've all got competing needs. How does that business cope with that?
Yes, competing needs are a challenge. And whose needs trump
Yes,
whose
well,
needs trump
exactly.
whose needs?
Yes.
So it's a conversation about who has, someone has to make a decision about who has the greater need. So there will be some people that can cope if it's a bit dark or a bit light, and some people will have migraines if the lights are on full. So clearly you've got to accommodate for the person who is going to become so ill they can't work. There is a there are competing needs, but it's important that you look at across the piece in a small business like that. There may be things that you can do, there may be things that you can't do. It may be that you offer them some flexibility, or that they can work in a different place. Hot desking for neurodivergent people has been a nightmare.
For anybody, it's a nightmare. I need my pens where I left them. I need the chewing gum still under there when I come in the next day. I do. Last day, sorry.
And there is another question here. Ali mentioned the barrier of people not having enough trust to disclose when they need emotional support. How can you work to change workplace culture policy, especially in a very large workplace, so people can gain trust in their employer?
Just a small question, Ali. Off you go.
Call people out, but tactfully. So when we're working in a little organization or a big one, I'm really about clarity. I'm that age in life now where we can all talk about something and nothing blooming changes. And you know what? I'm about making things change. So I don't care being loud and I don't care what people think. So I'll go into a big organization and I will insist that the CEO is in that room, and I will make sure that they absolutely take part. And because we're all about understanding your limiting beliefs, and we've all got them, even CEOs. That's why they have the big tests and the big cars, boys, isn't it? And girls. I will gently normalize them, make them the equivalent of everybody else. And by doing that, they will feel things that they haven't felt before. And the feedback we get from CEOs was that was uncomfortable. My position in the company, I don't affect their position in the company. I think they're respected more for it. But the ultimate feedback we get is, you made me think about things in a different way. You made me understand why I bang heads with that person and not this person. And you made me understand why I'm struggling to have this conversation. It's not because it's annoying me because I'm not at work today. It's because I don't know how to deal with it. And you gave me the skills and the ability to have those conversations. So we're back to where we started in a lovely loop, really. We've got to get people talking, but we've got to make it accessible and not taboo. It's emotional well-being. We all have emotions. Some days the wrong one gets big. It's normal, it's natural, and it's okay. So if you do have a boss that you think isn't taking you seriously on that, well, twofold, and this might be a bit blunt, but I won't be working there. And if they've got a policy in place that says they are going to take care of you for your emotional health, or for making sure everything's in place for you to work there with a disability and they're not, what are you doing? Value yourself. Because unless we value ourselves, we're not going to change anything.
And that's really true. And it's having the courage and confidence to do that, and being aware in the back of your mind that we've got the Great Resignation going on. We've got about 1 million empty jobs or vacant roles at the moment where companies are looking to fill. And actually the change culturally with companies in general, to see them start, I'm going to say start because I don't believe they've done it before, but to start to value the people that are making the money, that means that they've got the big car and the big house and the holidays abroad,
But
instead of treating us as
interesting
commodities.
Sorry to interrupt, but one of our
Please.
big clients is insurance companies. Why? Why would insurance companies be interested in what we do with young people? And because it costs insurance companies a fortune when people aren't at work. And when you have to bring in temporary staff. Think about schools, the number of temporary staff they have to bring in. The NHS, temporary staff cost 10 times what our gorgeous nurses are being paid. And if the guys at the top that aren't taking this seriously actually thought about it, and if we actually spoke their language rather than saying you should be more open to mental health, and that's not going to work with them. What we need to do is talk their language and say, do you know how much money you could save if you actually meant this?
Absolutely. It's as true of any kind of adjustments that we need, whether it's for mental health, whether it's for disability. The return on investment, and we've done a lot of work on this, is roughly £3 in every pound spent, or £3.50. Who doesn't want a return on an investment that improves the livelihood, and the outcomes of your colleagues? It's an absolute win-win, isn't it? What are the things that you could suggest that are, because we've got 7 minutes, so let's have a bit of a free-for-all if that's all right. What are the built environment things that you maybe suggest? Because I walked into a client the other day and they've done some wonderful things. They've got lovely sensory pods. So, it doesn't matter whether you're neurodivergent or not, to have that quiet space to think, to have open plan. They've got lots of green plants around. Their actual cafe area smelt not only wonderfully of coffee, which I'm addicted to, but the smell of plants. It was so clean and fresh. It was wonderful and invigorating just walking through. Is that something you think that people should look at? I mean, Jackie, what do you think about the built environment?
Absolutely. I think if it's a nice place to be, who is not going to feel motivated by being in a nice environment? So we talk about hygiene factors at work, don't we? So things that are there don't necessarily actively motivate you, but if they're not there, they demotivate you. So if I turned up at work and my desk wasn't there, that was just a space, that would be a bit demotivating. I might leave again, but I would be surprised. It wouldn't be very easy for me to do my work. Because my desk is there doesn't make me go, hooray, my desk is here. I feel very motivated for a brilliant day at work. Do you see what I mean? It's like these things are the things that we need. So if we're talking about a built environment, there are hygiene factors that everybody wants to have in the workplace, but then there are things that we can go over and above. Can we put a nice environment in? Can we have fresh flowers on the front desk every week? Can we have some fruit delivered? What is the thing that's going to make everybody feel better about being in the workplace? But as we look to the future of work, of course, workplaces aren't in one place anymore. We're all working virtually. We're working in a myriad of different ways. We work right across from private business. We work in blue light sectors. So clearly those people are turning up to work. You can't remote work when you're an ambulance worker. It doesn't work. So their environment and their environment is about health and safety. So that's hard. You can't kind of go around and have walls of plants when you've got to have people coming and going. So it depends on where you're working and what you're doing. But one thing I would say, just to loop back on just slightly on that last conversation, is when we want to change people's minds, we've got to increase their awareness and understanding. And I think that's what Ali was saying before, was when she takes people into a different space, a capacity to think about themselves in a different way. We do a lot of training about what neurodivergence means and what it looks like when it shows up at work. So if you've got someone who's asking lots of questions to a line manager, what does that mean? Sometimes we see very stressed line managers going, well, they can't do that as a piece of work to keep asking me loads of questions. But we need to not look at that behaviour and say, well, that's a behaviour about asking questions. We need to understand what's behind that. So there's an information exchange that's not happening. So what can we do instead? And when we do our awareness training, it's amazing, actually. Every single time I do it or I watch other people do it, there's a moment where it's the penny drop moment and everyone goes, oh, I see.
Yeah.
People are approaching. We've all got the capacity to think that everybody else experiences the world just like we do.
Yeah.
We all have that. We all kind of have a tendency to think like that. And what we need to do is encourage people, especially leaders in businesses, to try and step outside of their experience of the world and start to understand how other people experience the
That's a
workplace and the
really
world
good
generally.
point there, Jackie. Thank you. Ali, can I just ask you, we've got a couple of minutes. What are your thoughts, if you've got any that you'd like to share before we log off?
I think, just to follow on from that conversation, I think if you're in a big blue chip, absolutely, they need to step out of their own world and be aware of the people that they've employed for their skills and their talents that, let's face it, are making them money, so look after them, and they need to do everything they can to make that environment wonderful. But there's an awful lot of people that don't work in big blue chip companies, do work in very small environments, and even putting some flowers on the table is probably more than the boss can afford. It would be lovely, right? And I'm not being cynical, I'm being a realist. It would be lovely. So if we can't change people's environments, I can't change where some of my kids live. I can't change that mum's in a bed, one bed sit that's not big enough. So does that mean that until I put flowers in, they're not going to be happier? No. I come back to what I'm saying. If mentally and our emotional health is in a good place, we can walk in anywhere. I'll share something with you. I'm training up in Richmond tomorrow. So I'm up in Richmond now, up in North Yorkshire. We booked into a very nice hotel. Why not? It was a long drive. We have a lovely quiet conference room. When I got there, it all went wrong. So I am currently sat in a pub with a load of boys down the end there that we bought loads of beer for to keep them quiet. And before I came online, emotionally, it was like, oh no, this isn't good enough. You know, this won't work, this won't work. But do you know what? It will work, because it's not about the environment. If we can change the environment, that'd be wonderful, wouldn't it? But let's stop worrying about big things that realistically we probably can't change overnight, and look at the things we can. If emotionally and mentally you're in the right place, you can walk into a pub like this, feet are sticking to the carpet, and it's okay. It's about this, more than some of the bigger stuff we're
I
talking.
have to say, I was desperately running to catch the train to get up to London, and I was in a foul mood because I thought I was going to miss it, and then I was going to miss the webinar, and everything was going really wrong. And the lady in the ticket office down in Etchingham, down in East Sussex, gave me a little packet of a crocheted heart that was a crochet kindness, and she just handed it across, and I was like, that's lovely, thank you. And everything was okay. It was such a lovely human response, a touch of human kindness. And yeah, if you ever want to afford flowers, I have to recommend Aldi's. They do £2.25 and they last for weeks. I love Aldi's. Anyway, we're going to have to wrap up now. We're at 3 o'clock. I want to say thank you very much for joining us, Jackie. Thank you, Ali. Really appreciate it. We weren't able to have Martin from Thrive, but we will put information about them in there. Also, please, if you get a chance, Jodie Greer's Be People Smart Maturity Models, really helpful as well. So thank you all so much. I hope you join us on the next webinars in a month's time, and we'll speak to you soon. Thank you. Take care, everyone.